In this episode of the Omega Podcast, we have an executive district advisor from Alaska sharing about the importance of financial planning for military families, retirement, and serving in the United States military, digitized for excellence.
Welcome to the Omega Podcast with Lance Penhale, originally from Alaska. Lance has 9 years of experience with First Command Financial Services and has been a client since graduating from the United States Military Academy at West Point in 2010. He is also a 2021 40 Under 40 award winner from the Alaska Journal of Commerce and Anchorage Daily News. He started his post-military career as a financial advisor in Hawaii. He served the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard communities throughout the island of Oahu. Thank you for your service, Lance, and so glad to have you on the Omega Podcast.
Well, thanks, Keenan. I appreciate you inviting me to speak today. I'm excited to share some of my experience. Hopefully there's some takeaways from it, but we'll see about that.
Absolutely. And for many of our listeners, they are extremely glad for your particular service in our military. And since today is Memorial Day, we definitely want to commemorate you. But can you share a bit more about your background and experiences prior to First Command and perhaps leading up to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Keenan, I appreciate that. Everybody, has a personal story. I think it's important to share that with people so they know where you're coming from. And I was born and raised on the Kenai Peninsula in Alaska. Some folks will know Kenai because it is home of the Kenai River, where the biggest king salmon in the world was caught. I think I just saw on social media it pop up, 97-pound king salmon caught on my home river. But I live a little bit further into the woods than that. I actually come from a place called North Kenai, called Nikiski. And it's really in the woods. I thought you build a house, you don't buy a house growing up. My dad cleared the logs from the land when he moved there and back in 1968, and he built his house. And I thought that was normal. I realize now that I've seen a lot of stuff that is a different experience, and I've grown now in my 30s to really appreciate growing up that way. But my dad's a 3-tour Vietnam veteran. He's originally from Northern California. I only found this out recently, but my grandfather was the first state park conservationist in California history, I believe, and that's the first state park system. So I think after Vietnam, when they're struggling with post-traumatic stress, and there wasn't a lot of job opportunities for Vietnam veterans, there was the Alaska pipeline. And so he moved up here as a welder, pipe fitter, instrument technician, and he worked in Alaska's severe climates and helped build our pipeline. And then he, after about 15 years or so, he decided, I'm going to start a family. He married my mom from the Philippines. They exchanged letters while he was serving, and then he decided at 40 that he was going to start a family. And I grew up in Nikiski. So from there, I wrestled growing up. I had some good friends, and I realize now that I had some compounding opportunity coming from the tiny town that I had, because I had a coach that went to school and in my hometown, but he went and he wrestled Division I a little bit, and he came back and he was my high school coach for 4 years. And I was lucky enough to be recruited to wrestle in colleges. I'll tell you, you said earlier that I went to West Point. I didn't know what that school was. I never really planned to be in the military, and my dad never talked about it. So here's part of the story. The day I turned 16, I was working in a fish cannery, salmon cannery, 18 hours a day. And I spent all my money one summer building a computer. And I got home and my dad said, "How are you going to pay for college?" Right? And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm going to go for free." And turns out the only school going to pay an undersized kid to redshirt from Alaska is the United States Military Academy. So I ended up in the military as an air defense artillery officer. I studied computer science at West Point, and I moved to the Jersey Shore where I coached wrestling. That was an awesome experience. And then after that, I went to Oklahoma City for a little bit for my basic officer course. I had some great memories with great friends, but for me, I didn't like Oklahoma so much, but I get that there's other folks that Oklahoma is for them. Then I moved from there to Okinawa, Japan, where I spent 4.5 years active duty as a Patriot missile officer. After that, I got out of the military and moved to Hawaii. I wanted to surf. I fell in love with that while I was on an internship in college, and then I got to do it on the Jersey Shore. And so I put together a great Army surf career. That's pretty much it. I'd become a client of First Command as a new second lieutenant. When I was getting out, I spoke to my advisor. I wanted to live in Hawaii, and he said, "Why don't you come be an advisor?" I hadn't really thought about it. And so 10 years later, I'm still doing it. It's a blessing. So I think that pretty much covers my background.
That's fantastic. And I really appreciate the story that you shared about your father, coming back home and sharing with you, how are you going to afford college? Because I think a lot of people listening to our conversation can really resonate to that being a struggle of theirs, and the fact that you were able to get a full ride and to have that support from your alma mater says a lot about your tenacity, your grit, and your academic performance. But when it comes to the journey that you've had, but also learning how you're in a financial capacity, assisting and helping other individuals through counsel, what would you say is your best approach to financial planning, personally perhaps, or when it comes to individuals that are just starting out? Do you have any particular tools, resources, or tricks that have been beneficial to you in your journey?
Yeah, that's a good question, how I approach financial planning. And although it's always been the same way, I think my understanding of financial planning philosophy has grown even stronger towards what we believe in. So first of all, I do all the same things I talk to folks about, but it's really financial planning. We're not talking yet about wealth management. We're not talking about insurance or savings or high yield savings. We're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about financial planning. And the approach is comprehensive and consultative. And I think it's Kobe Bryant. I might butcher this one here, but he said, the greatest thing you could do in life is to coach other people to do what they want to do. And frankly, being in the military, I didn't realize the level of official UCMJ, United States Code of Military Justice Authority I really had. I really appreciated the experiences I have being an Army officer, but wearing the rank and telling people what to do and it being a legal order to do so wasn't really something that I'd planned to do. And with great power comes great responsibility. But I like Kobe Bryant's approach, just what do other people want to do with their lives and help facilitate that. So when it comes to financial planning, the first thing I've got to do is get to know people, where they want to go. And I will make a caveat here because I am a fiduciary. All of the advisors on my team are fiduciaries. We make recommendations in the client's best interest, and that's our legal obligation to do so. How do we do that? We use a financial analysis, right? And we provide recommendations based off of that analysis. So it's a financial planning process. And we believe in that comprehensive approach. There's 3 cornerstones in financial planning: savings for short-term and emergency needs, investments for intermediate and long-term goals, and then ultimately insurance to protect your family in case the unexpected happens or even tragedy. And so you put all 3 of those cornerstones in place and you have a firm plan, meaning it's difficult to knock over because everybody knows you create a plan, it's probably not going to go exactly that way. And so take a very consultative approach. I ask all my clients as we get started, what would you do if money was not a concern? That's usually not something people expect when they talk with a financial planner. But really, if you said, I want to have the most money when I die, that would be a different plan. And most people, especially the types of folks that I work with, that's not ever something that they thought about. They just want to spend quality time with their family. They want to do the things they're passionate about. They want to give back to their communities. And then the question is, well, how are we going to do that? How are you going to take care of yourself now? And how are you going to plan for the future? We ask the hard questions. And here's one. And now that the era of pensions for a lot of folks that aren't in the military is over, if you're not saving for your future, who is? And so, that's not always the nicest conversation people want to have, but it's the one that they need to have. And that's ultimately my responsibility, is getting people to do more than they would do on their own. And I'm not here to make anybody do it. I'm here to talk to them about the things that they want, and then give them some direction on how they could get there. And usually there's no shortcut. It's a lot of discipline and time.
Absolutely.
Question. Yeah, largely financial behavior. I don't want to miss that, because a lot of times wealth managers, I have my Series 24. I'm a registered principal, Series 7, 66. I've got all the licenses. A lot of people, when they approach a wealth management, they're dealing with folks who already have a lot of money. And something that I take great pride in, and you said, how do we approach financial planning, is, compound interest, like living on less than you earn, paying yourself first, avoiding high interest rate debt. Those things are really easily said. But they're not easily done, because we're human beings. And so I guess I take a human approach. That's maybe my most concise answer.
Enjoying the First Command episode? We want to hear from you. Drop a comment in the chat or share this episode with a friend or colleague. Now, let's get back to this boosted conversation.
No, that's fantastic. And I really appreciate how you ground yourself with understanding the client's needs through the relationship and developing that trust and transparency from the get-go. It's more about, what's your end goal, right? As you mentioned, are you saving for retirement? Because it gets people to think, okay, I'm in this current status, you're young, starting to accrue some income, but then you have to think 20, 30, 40 years down the line, after you work for so long, what is that you're working toward? So it's good to have that end goal in mind as you're kind of backtracking. But I really appreciate that as you understand more about your clients' needs and you provide that assurance for them and their future. How is it that you're able to sort out the types of clients that you serve? Because you had mentioned that you work with wealthy clients, but for someone who might be middle income, or, for those that are working toward, becoming more financially stable, what particular ways are you providing services to those types of demographics, whether it's high income or low income? Is there a difference to the particular types of services you provide?
Yeah, great question. So what types of clients do we serve? Who do we focus on? How do we do it? Is there a different strategy depending on where you're at? And so we have clients at all stages of their financial journey. And I'm certain there's a lot of different structures about what these stages are. So I won't get too far into that. We'll call one of them at retirement. So we've got plenty of clients, like most financial firms, at retirement. I was mentioning it earlier. Most of our industry focuses on the already wealthy people, because those assets under management generate the most revenue, and they focus on that. But I read this in a book. I had a mentor that told me a long time ago that the purpose of business is not to create a profit. That's polarizing, right? The purpose of business is not to create a profit. It's profit that allows you to carry out your purpose. And if you're a for-profit company, you have control, right? And so we're lucky here at First Command that we believe in our mission. Coaching those who serve in their pursuit of financial security. We got a very audacious vision. It's lifelong financial security for our nation's military families. And then, of course, now we've been around 68 years. Alaska, and the district I run here, we have the highest per capita veteran population in the country. So we have an obligation in lifelong financial security to serve these veterans and these generational clients and keep their legacy going. But at the same time, I'm just doing the quick math on my team. 100% of my team, and I believe it's somewhere around 80% for First Command, is direct military families, either veterans ourselves military spouses or military dependents. And so we have that affinity for our target market because it's us, right? And if my friend didn't introduce me to his advisor when I was a lieutenant, I wouldn't be where I was today. And so we pay that forward. So how do we, focus on our target market? We are present. We engage with the military. We give back. We participate. Just the other day, we were volunteering with an organization called Gold Star Peak, which is directly tied to Gold Star families, which are the families that lose a service member while serving. Right, so those are Gold Star families, and we partnered with the USO, and those soldiers. Just a quick side story: on Tuesday, they climbed this brutal mountain, and it's May in Alaska, so there's still snow in the mountains. I mean, I don't think all these folks knew what they were in for, because it's a tough hike. It's a quick hike, but a tough one. And at the top, they built this memorial to Gold Star families out there. And what did we do? We provided some volunteers and some food. And when the soldiers got off the mountain, they had burgers and hot dogs and snacks and all that stuff. And so you don't always hear this a lot, but a couple soldiers were like, this was a really big morale boost. We needed it. And having been in the Army myself, not all the things are actual morale boosts. They're nice. But I could tell this was a great thing, because they carried the dog tags of fallen comrades up the mountain in honor for Memorial Day. So that was great. I know that's a side story. What type of clients do we serve? Military families. It's, we can't spread ourselves. If you try to be everything to everyone, you're not going to be, right? So we're focused on what's important to us, and that's military families. I will say, though, for me, we got a lot of tradesmen up here in Alaska, a lot of good people. And this is a caveat, but I was never going to play Division I football or Division I basketball or something like that. I could ball, but I'm 5'5". Maybe I could have. A couple of people did, but I didn't. I wrestled, and wrestling was a great equalizer for me, because I got to go play Division I sports. And more importantly, I got to build character in that sport at a high level of competition. And then when I went to West Point, I had a classmate from Connecticut, went to Canterbury Academy. He was my roommate, and 80% of his class went to either military academies or Ivy League schools. I was like, man, 10% of my class maybe got accepted or applied to college, let alone went to college and graduated. It couldn't be a further, place from my experience growing up. And that was a great equalizer in society. And then the Army, not everybody grows up with the same mentors. And Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers, is humbling to me, because the compounding opportunity they talk about. Not everybody's going to get that foundation from a karate instructor, a pastor, their parents, a basketball coach, whoever it's going to be. And you join the Army, we give you some Army values, and we give you some work, and therefore hopefully some dignity, and could be a great equalizer. So the last one, who talks about financial planning, financial acumen? Like what do you need to do to get there? And what are the barriers, which I'll tell you, they're largely psychological for folks. How do we take this opportunity, going to West Point, being in the military, and perpetuate that? And financial planning may be the only way, actually. And so that's it. That's what we do. We do it for why. I think our founder, Carol Payne, said this a long time ago: military families may never be rich, but they don't deserve to be poor. We got a lot of rich military families, I'll say that, but that's not the point. It's that people should be secure, because when you are secure, you can be more present. The statement, wherever you are, be there. It's really easy to say, once again, but it's hard to do. And so if you can be more stable in your life, and a lot of that is rooted in finances, you can give yourself permission to be present. And I think that's what life can be about, is enjoying all the experiences and moments you have. And it's very difficult when you're worried about paying your bills, keeping the lights on, feeding your kids, running out of money, right? So that's what I think we really do for people. And the question was, who do we serve? We serve military families because we are them and we care.
Absolutely. But when it comes to charging for your services, if your main target is military families, how do you develop a bundle or a service or a subscription that's efficient for them in their, restricted budget, or in some instances, they may have a larger budget?
Yeah. So how do we charge for our services? And the answer, right? We're non-proprietary broker-dealer, insurance agent, investment advisor. And then we do have a bank as well. And so we are financial services companies, or a company. And like all of them, it's a combination of fees and commissions. And it largely will depend on, the client situation. What is their situation as a fiduciary? What services can I provide them to get closer to where they want to be? And that's all has to be fully disclosed. There's a regulation best interest. We're fiduciaries, so we hold ourselves to a standard above that. But regulation best interest requires that we disclose the fees and commissions associated with any of the products or services we're providing. And then also, just to mention, in the rare case, we can offer tailored professional service fees for actual planning. But I'll say that is a rare case because we do consultative financial planning complimentary for military families, right? Because we will ultimately be successful when our clients are successful. So that's an interesting question. I won't break down the exact numbers, but our high net worth clients, like most wealth management firms, are generating the vast majority of the revenue. So it begs the question, what are we doing with the other very large percentage of our clients? Well, we're coaching them to live on less than they earn, put money away on a monthly basis, and let that compound and accumulate so they have an opportunity to become a high net worth client themselves. So hopefully that answers the question. Combination of commissions and fees fully disclosed to the clients. And it depends on their life stage and what their goals are.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And I think it's so important that you sort of develop a customer portfolio, understanding their needs, their budget, and understanding really what would be best suited for their desired outcome. I think that that's so critical. But as any financial professional or financial planner, it's so important to stay abreast with the industry trends. Do you have any particular thoughts when it comes to staying current with what's happening in our day and age, such as interruptions with artificial intelligence, lack of trust with certain financial planners? Do you have anything that you can share to our listeners that can reinforce some of your areas of expertise and understandings?
Yeah, so industry trends, and my capstone project in college when I studied computer science was actually on AI in 2010. That's when OpenAI was founded. So, could be doing that, I guess. But I was asking the question about philosophy earlier. I don't want to lose this one, and about how we get paid. A lot of the clients that come to us are not in a position yet to really be investing in a way that is going to lead to high net worth. Many times we're actually doing debt consolidation. I don't know if that's a trend. I guess we could squeak that in there, but doing debt consolidation from high interest rate debt accounts, largely credit card debt, and ultimately lowering their monthly payment per month, the interest they're going to pay over time, and putting them on a fixed budget with that. And then the challenge is, getting out of debt, which will take a period of time, building savings while you're doing that. So you got a little bit more security. So when it doesn't go according to plan, you can still move forward. And then once people get out of debt, they have that behavior established, and we start putting them into investments and an emergency savings plan and insurance, et cetera. So we start to build a more robust plan as their financial situation changes. Just want to stick on that for a minute. And what do we get paid for that? It depends once again, but really we're helping somebody get out of debt and coaching them to a point where they can invest for the future. So I don't know if that's a trend. A little sad, I guess, to talk about the current state of our economy and the fact that many people are in debt and living on credit. And they're in a pit. They don't know how to get out of it. And so usually we're starting there. But industry trends right now, I think that AI is going to change a lot of industries. That's my personal opinion on it. There's a lot of speculation on where AI currently stands and its effectiveness. But this is my thought, and we're comprehensive. We believe in wealth management, risk management, and cash management, savings, investments, and insurance. And I would say financial planning is a trend. I think there's a lot of wealth managers that only do assets. They don't look at what happens when someone dies, what happens with their estate. They're just managing assets as a wealth manager. And we certainly manage assets, but we do take that comprehensive approach. So what I believe is trending is financial coaching and bringing in the psychology of money into the conversation and really talking to people. How does this situation make you feel? Or if you achieve that, how are you going to feel once you accomplish it? Right? Actually talking to people about the psychology of their financial journey just as much as the current balance of their investment account, right? So I think that is trending in the industry, and some of the technology largely leading to compliance by design. I would say that's probably a good thing, actually having digital systems that are all integrated, that are very efficient and effective and also safe. We're at an interesting time, so don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of AI and computer science. But how do I stay abreast of the trends? You take a growth mindset. You're constantly learning. It's that statement. There are things you know you don't know, and then there's a whole bunch more things that you don't know. And so staying humble and continuing to learn, and I think that requires a mindset that you can learn continuously and you can continue to get better. And I fully believe that. So I have a network of peers and mentors that I communicate with regularly. I learn from my clients all the time. I stay abreast of financial news, and I do a lot of reading. I say reading like I think a lot of people do these days, but I listen to audiobooks when I go on my long Alaska drives. So just constant learning. And then learning through experience, seeing what's going on with my client families, kind of aggregating the experiences and hypothesizing what's going on a little bit. I know that's kind of deep. That's not what I'm doing for clients, but that's one of the blessings that I get out of this career, is that I get to learn from other people's experiences. I get to learn from their collective and common experience, but I also get to learn from their individual experiences. And there's a lot of things I won't do in life that I get to enjoy through their stories. So I think financial coaching is trending in the industry, and I think that we've been doing it the longest. That's why I don't know if that objectively is true, but we've been financial coaching for our entire existence. And I think that is becoming very relevant to the average person, that it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about, this is my life. What do I want to do with it? And if I'm not saving for my future, who is? So taking ownership, taking responsibility. And I don't know, that I took that question, a different industry, constantly changing. I'm buckled up, man. I'm excited. I'm excited for what the next 5 and 10 years holds with AI.
Absolutely. And just to be cautious of your time, are there any final remarks that you would like to leave our listeners with, Lance?
I think I've got an example, just a success story of the way that we approach, financial planning and therefore wealth management, insurance, saving, banking, right? I remember being an advisor in Hawaii and meeting a lieutenant in the Army that was dating. He was dating his now wife. and he knew that he wanted to get married with her, and he didn't have a plan, and he wanted to save for a wedding ring. And that's part of the story is not that uncommon. I've helped a lot of young gentlemen save to ask their partner to marry them. But ultimately, this family started planning for their marriage, and she was Catholic, and they didn't want to elope. He was going to PCS, put permanent change of station, to another duty station. And in the military, we take care of families, but they were not officially married, so some of the benefits didn't apply to them. And I talked to them about eloping, and they said, no, we can't do that. Our parents are not going to let us do that, right? And so helped them save money for a wedding ring. Ultimately, they became engaged, and then we talked about this next permanent change of station. And they came back one day for a meeting, and they're like, we eloped, but we didn't tell our parents. Right? So then they go on to the next duty station. He takes a geo bachelor tour over to Korea while she's back at home working as a nurse. And they start planning and saving for their dream wedding out in New Jersey. They want a big farmhouse with horses and the whole nine. I didn't even know they had farmhouses and stuff in New Jersey. You're from the East Coast, so you know, but I didn't know that coming from Alaska. And they ultimately were able to have this wedding, and I'll get to the part that meant a ton to me, or it was very eye-opening to me, is they went to the Philippines for their honeymoon 2 years after they got officially married, or I guess did the ceremony, which is 3 years after they eloped. And so I've been with this family for 4 or 5 years, and they tell me that they're pregnant. And my client called me up. He said, hey, we're moving back to the States. We're going to live at JBLM, Joint Base Lewis McChord. If I get that wrong, somebody's going to call me out. But JBLM out in Washington. A little bit rainier version of Alaska, a little bit closer to civilization, but that's where they wanted to move to. That's where the Army assigned them. And so he called me and said, hey, I'm moving. I'd like to sit with a face-to-face advisor so I could have some accountability to the things that I want to do. And it's getting more serious. We're pregnant, right? And I said, congratulations. That is wonderful to hear. And I've been with them since they were dating, and he was saving for the wedding ring. And now they're having their first kid, right? And we're both kind of in a rush. I say, thank you. You get your new address. I'll make sure you're connected with the right person. I just want to ask, do you know if it's a boy or a girl? And he goes, oh, awesome. Thanks for asking. It's going to be a girl. And I asked him if he had picked a name, if him and his wife had picked a name. And they said, absolutely. We're going to call her Adeline, or we'll call her Addie for short. And I said, thank you so much for sharing that news with me. I'll call you back tomorrow, and I'll let you know how this handoff is going to go. So I call him back. I got him set up with the right person. He's trying to go into the Ranger Battalion. I happen to know the Sergeant Major that actually is in charge of the Ranger Battalion there. And so I make a connection. I set him up with the advisor. And at the very end, I'd only wrote down one thing from our previous conversation because I was kind of on the go. And I said, hey, thanks again for sharing the news about baby Addie. I'm really excited for you and your family. I use their names. I'm keeping them out of this. But he just stopped in his tracks on the phone. And he goes, wow, Lance, I really, really appreciate you remembering the name of our daughter. And that just got me, man. That was like, this is what we really do. We listen to people. We talk to them about their hopes, dreams, their wants and desires, and financially, and we help put together a plan to do that. And I, like I said at the beginning, I take a consultative approach. And I mentioned the Kobe Bryant thing. The greatest thing you could do in life is coach people to do what they want to do. And that's what I get to do all the time now. So I didn't plan to be in this job. I'd call it a career, and ultimately it's become a calling. And then let me conclude on this. If you have a financial plan and you backwards plan from the things that you want to have, right, and you figure out how much money you need to put away for the future, then it simplifies the whole working thing. I read a book a long time ago that said working is anything in your life that you want to be different than it is right now, right? And so I don't have to do any particular career. I'm in search of my calling. And then it's a matter of, can I make enough money to support the quality of life I live today and hit that number that's going to create that future that I want to live? And that simplifies the conversation from, I need to stay at this job forever. And so you asked earlier about trends. Sorry to get on this one, but there's a lot of people gigging these days. They're making good money in the service industry. They're driving Uber, they're driving DoorDash, they're doing all those things. And you know what they all have in common? Their 401k, they don't stay long enough to let that 401k compound. So ultimately they take that, if it's even provided to them, they cash it out, and they're doing what they want to do and making good money doing it, but they're not saving for the future because they don't have that singular employer running the employee plan for them, right? So they're moving job to job, which I think Gen Z is relentless in, and I kind of think the same way. And so it makes financial planning even more important. And that's what it is for me. I'm in my calling now. It's not, the whole Lance don't talk about work thing. It's just who I am now. And I love that because I didn't really think that was part of life. You're seeking your calling, and hopefully it makes enough money to meet your needs and what you want to have in the future. That's what I get to do all the time. So I'll leave it there, Keenan. Thanks for having me on.
No, you're so amazing. And thank you so much for your service, Lance, and for being on the Omega podcast.
Yeah, appreciate it. Happy Memorial Day. Remember those lost in service today, because that's what Memorial Day is about. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. So thanks a lot, Keenan.